Hello, my name is Ursa Burdenkeeper. I am a Artbeat alumni here in Winnipeg, and I volunteer at the Artbeat Artworks Gallery in Portage Place. I'm going to go over today a few of my favorite shading techniques for pencil or fine tip inking pens. A couple of different shading techniques, and then I'm going to do a quick demonstration of how to use those techniques on a previously drawn item. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna go over my materials. I'm gonna write that down in nice big letters. Well, maybe not nice, but big letters. So I have a Sharpie pen, and this is a fine tip marker. I also have some Staedtler pencils. These are in your common school supply kit, like pencil blending stuff or whatever. So it goes from pencils that are 2H, 2B, all the way up to 8B. And that's different sizes of pencil tip and different textures of pencil. So this is the 2H. It's very sharp, very fine. And then the 2B is a little bit thicker, not by much. I'll go in order. So 4B is a little darker, a little bit more of a thicker line, more blur. Great for shading. 6B. 7B is very thick. It's very hard to get thin lines out of that one. And the thickest of the bunch, very dark, almost like charcoal in a sense, and that is 8B. So these are our shading pencils. I also work with just like a regular HB2. That's like a regular classroom pencil right there. My favorite brand of pencil is called, oops, it broke. It's not called Oops, It Broke, but mine did, oops. Okay, so this is, I can sharpen it. So that brand again, it's called Ticonderoga. Easily recognizable by the green and yellow band where the pencil eraser goes. And it'll say it's a Dixon Ticonderoga. It's one of my favorite pencils. I've used them since high school. So that's the pencil guy. And I also use a 0.7 HB2 mechanical pencil. 0.7 HB number 2 mechanical pencils. All right. Also, you saw me use my sharpener. Sharpeners are good, always useful. A very small mono zero elastomer eraser from Tombow. It's a very, very thin, small precision eraser. I have one that's not so precision. It's Dollarama brand. Not very good, but useful. And then the refills for my mechanical eraser. Regular school style white gum eraser. And some pencil blenders. Also useful for pencil blending is any kind of tissue, paper towel, even tissue paper like toilet paper works really well for blending, and non-oily, greasy fingerprint. So I'm gonna go on, that's for pencils. I have eraser, lead replacements, refills, there we go. sharpener, and blenders. Most blenders I find at any kind of craft store or places like Walmart or Michael's, anything like that that has art supplies or school supplies usually sells pencil blenders. And all it is wrapped up paper that I use to blend with. Pretty standard. Out of this range of pencils, I think I'll go with the 4B just for the pencil blending techniques. I'm not going to do every single one of them, but some basic ones would be what I call either the Scribble or the Zigzag or Rough Hatch. So that's your very, very basic diagonal hatch, rough hatch, or zigzag, and that's just a scribble, just to fill in the color. You can go very light or very dark and get different shades with the same pencil. One of the first things people do to blend pencils is just use the fingertip. It's very messy. Sometimes you could put another piece of paper down first before you start to blend so that you don't get handprints or get your hands dirty and transfer that onto your artwork. So I'm just gonna rub it basically with my fingerprint and try to spread that top layer of pencil gradient across the paper. With my finger blackened, it's very easy to transfer that anywhere else on the paper. So you have to be very careful not to continuously touch or drag your hand across the pencil blending area. Same pencil, same technique, but with the pencil blender, I just, like I would be coloring it in with an invisible marker. I don't know if you can really see the difference with this camera and how small it is, but it basically just takes the top layer of the pencil and spreads it into the fibers of the paper so that it's not as easily transferable. So already that's a big difference between this one that I blended with my finger and this one. It doesn't transfer as far. You can't even, I'd have to press pretty hard to make that pencil go anywhere now. So that's a basic blending technique. I don't have any tissues right at the moment. Oh, I might be in luck. No? Okay. Okay, so this is called a rough hatch, or rough hatch, zigzag, rough hatch, zigzag. Very close cousin to the rough hatch or crosshatch would be the crosshatch going this way as well as this way. I like to keep it diagonal. Rough hatch, zigzag, pencil blend. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Let's use some tissue on this and see if I can get it to blend in a little bit better. And the point of pencil blending is to minimize the appearance of your pencil strokes. So with a tissue, it's going to take out almost all of the detail in which direction I am using the pencil in, and just makes it one flat shaded patch. And I can use both left and right, diagonal or circular motions to blend those in. And that there is very difficult to tell which way my pencil was going, and it gives it a more natural blend. I'm going to go to a thinner pencil just so you can see details. So So this here, diagonal hatch, cross hatch, rough hatch, zigzag, are all basically the same thing and can be blended in the same ways with the tissue, the fingerprint, or the pencil blender. Other popular blending techniques, this here I can go with very fine, let's go in a square shape, very fine diagonal lines. I can start very close together, very thin. I can go over it many times. Very popular with either hair or fur, anything that has a texture that's fluffy. If we're doing family portraits or pictures of pets or fabric materials, anything like that would usually have a diagonal crosshatch shading technique. Maybe at some point I'll get a zoom in on this at the end, maybe. So crosshatches, this is a fine crosshatch. I can also use the marker for a fine crosshatch because it's a 0.5 or a 0.7. And as many times as you go over it, the more dark it becomes. Just go over the same images. So I could do maybe half this box really dark, do a scribble. Fine crosshatch, and then the larger version for wide open areas or things that are not as shaded, like furniture or any kind of solid objects in the background might have a crosshatch. Anything that's wooden or ceramics, anything like that will have a fine crosshatch in the background. Dash hatch, pretty close to the same thing. It's just lots of little lines, randomized, different orders, in different directions even. Rough hatches. And this is usually for something that's fuzzy, fuzzy animals, anything that's felt or fabric will have different sizes, different directions, different pressurized techniques. So it could be very light, it could be very heavy. You can scribble in there just to fill in the areas. Scribbles. Scribble hatch, and that's just circular motions or zigzag motions, or what I call the three. So you just go like this. Very popular with things that are feathered or soft, like bird wings, anything like that. It's just threes or M's or pointy three. I don't know. But that's a scribble hatch, and I can do that in pencil as well. Just kind of fill it in. I don't know what that looks like from far away, but it's a very messy hatch. What else? Contour lines. So let's say an apple, maybe. Let's draw an apple. Apple has a leaf and a stem. Okay. So if I wanted to do a shading on maybe the left side of the apple, I would use a technique called contour lines, neat or messy. And it's a bended or curved line that follows the shape of the apple. And you would cover the whole thing, regardless if the whole thing's in shading or not. And then the more shaded area, you would just add more lines closer together, following the same area, and it could be halfway through or partway through, just to show that this side of the apple is more shadowed than the other side of the apple. That's very neat. It's called a neat contour line. If I wanted to do a messy contour line, I could take the same apple, this little leaf and a stem, and I could do messy contour lines, which are more like this. Right? And you always want to go crosshatch. Different techniques for different items that you're shading, different types of shading. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I'm trying not to use my eraser and make it pretty right now. And then again, with the fine contour line or the messy contour line, you can always use your fingerprint, like I would, to drag that shading out throughout the whole apple. Just blend that right to the edges. I wouldn't be concerned with being neat, because the fun thing about erasers is you can come in afterwards and erase the excess blending outside of the lines. And that makes it a very clean, shaded area. And then I can come in with my fine tipped eraser and do the apple's highlighted area with a very fine, I clean up these little areas around the edges. That's these guys, okay, cross-directional. I go left, or from top left to bottom right, and then switch it up from top right to bottom left. This way, and then back again. And again, this would be for maybe wood, anything that is more of a coarse fabric like jean, denim, corduroy, anything like that if you're doing clothing, or things that are rigid like wood. You can go as many times as you like in here. You can go full blending, make sure you get every little piece of white off the page and covered in graphite, or you can do several small lines, a little quicker, a little more natural looking, or very fine, well thought out placed lines if you wanted to do precision work like geometrics, or geometric shapes usually have very fine precision lines that are still used for shading. It depends on the project that you're working on. There you go. So this is cross-directional hatch. Other people might be very interested in or familiar with pointillism. It's not my forte. I'm not very good at it, but the basics of it is the closer you put your pointillism, your dots or your spots or points, the closer they are together, the darker the image will appear, so the more shaded it will appear. And then you spread them out slowly, either methodically or randomized, it's up to you. You spread them out as you go across the image or the page so that it appears less shaded than the very close together circles or points or dots. If I had maybe a marker or something, this would show up better, but I would just place my hand in a convenient spot, make sure the pencil or the pen is very comfortable in your hand, and then I would just do a single wrist motion per dot and just keep going. And you could look away. It doesn't matter if it's blotchy. It's some people will be more particular than others, but the pointillism in itself is very clean, simple, popular way to do shading. That works with pencil or pen. And any technique that you use to shade can be blended with the previous examples I gave, like the tissue. I can really darken the corner on this and then just lightly pull outward for the rest of the image. I could use more than just the point of the tissue, do the whole page if I wanted to, and that gives it all that really nice shading. Then if you were doing something like, oh, what is it called now? I call it reverse shading, but I know there's an actual word for it. It's when you use your eraser to do highlights instead of the shadow. So here, for example, in this dark square, I could lift off some of the pencil markings that I've made for like a shine to show the opposite of shading, the lightened area. Just to give like a little bit of a sparkle to something. Or if it's metallic, I like to use the pencil to show up that really white shiny spot where the light catches. There's a word for it, I don't know what it is, but it's like reverse shading, basically. So that's what I use those pencils for. And that, the technique I use here where you shade the whole page or just blend the shading into the whole image, it really makes the reverse shading show up on the side. That white line is very prominent on the shaded area, and it makes it pop really well. All right, those are my unblended shading techniques. On this page, I have my blended shading, which is the soft blend, the scribble blend, spiral, the finger blend. There's like a hard and a soft version. So if you're pressing very dark and really driving in the image with your hand, it's called a hard blend. And then a soft blend is where you just lightly, with your fingerprint, just move the pencil fibers around in the paper. And that makes it very soft. You can't really see your pencil blending or the direction of the pencil at that point. I don't know if that's gonna work. Can't really see it. Okay. And then lastly, the mixed media or full blend, and that is using all of the techniques as you will in whatever format you like, whether it be going with pencil first and then shading in the darkest areas with the pen. You can add the pencil eraser to the mix to add highlights. You can do scribbles, circles, zigzags, tiny spirals, anything like that in a combination to create the darkest shadow that you possibly can in your image. Look at any image, any kind of shading technique, or if it's traditional pencil, there's always some point in the picture where it's so dark that you can't see each individual fine line or detail. And that's where the mixed media full blend comes in, where you make the area as dark as you want or can, even with like a thick black Sharpie marker, just to kind of get rid of that entire area in dark shadow. Some of my mixed media full blends here. You can see I did a sphere or a circle. I don't know if it'll focus on that. And that's using several different techniques in one right here. Yeah. All right, last but not least, I'm gonna use some of these techniques on an image I drew last week. Are you ready for this? It's a self-portrait. So it's all done in pencil. There we go. So this is a self-portrait of mine. I previously drew it. In this case, specifically for this demo. So I'm gonna use a thick pencil. Let's go with the thickest one I have, the 8B pencil, because this is a bear. The black is very prominent in the color, especially say under the chin area, and this whole space right here is going to be very dark. You're not going to be able to see much detail in the fur because it's black and it's in the shadow. So I'm just going to go and fill in this whole area with a solid black 8HB pencil. And I'm not going to be super careful with it. I equate this to like a children's coloring book scribble. And that's just any direction, any old way, as long as you just get it covered up. This is the darkest part of the picture. And I'm not gonna blend it fully just yet. This part's dark. This part would be semi-dark under this little piece of fur here. And this is what I would imagine is the collarbone. So this area here, I'm just gonna fill this whole thing in right here with a semi-dark. So a little bit lighter than I did this area here. And I'm gonna do that in a diagonal from the top right to the bottom left, because that is the direction that the fur is going in. So I'm just gonna very lightly do that. And a semi-dark. So this would be more of a black and this would be more of a gray, being darker at the top, kind of blending into this side right here, or the crease, I guess, the center line. And I'm just gonna go light circles just to fill in those blotchy white areas in here. Now this looks like it's one solid furry mass. If I wanted to be really, really concise and get all of these little furry parts on the side, I'm gonna move down to like a 6B on that, and I'm just gonna reinforce some of the furry parts right here. Just to make it really fuzzy, really fluffy, right? There's a little bit in here. There you go. And then while this background is nice and blended in, I'm just gonna go with a thinner pencil. You don't have to use all of these different kinds of pencils either. I realize not everybody is gonna have access to a full blending set of graphite pencils. So I could even use something as simple as a mechanical pencil and just go in very lightly and give texture to that fur and show what direction it's going in. And maybe on the camera you can't see how blended it really is, but it gives a lot more definition to the fur. So that's the darkest area of the face there, or the neck, sorry. And here you wouldn't really get to see these individual lines in the dark black part. So I'm just gonna take my tissue paper, the corner on my fingertip, and I'm just gonna blend that in just a little bit. Just so I can really, it looks kind of like charcoal, honestly, it's so dark. And then I'm gonna take that dark end of the tissue paper, I'm gonna go in along the face on this side and just kind of really darken that up along the head. And in that little corner under the eye there. It's very kind of messy, but that's okay, because this is a lot better than using a pencil to do all of that really light shading. And then I can come in with my mechanical pencil and just individually draw the top layer of fur on the face. And anybody who has dark colored hair or black hair out there will know when they take pictures of your hair or fabric, anything like that, will have a small area where the light is hitting it, where it's much lighter than the rest of the image, and that's where the eraser comes in. I'm just gonna add a light shine or a gleam to the side of the face. I'm guessing the sun's kind of coming from the top left side of the picture in a downward motion on this side. So this side of the fur is going to be a lot more, it's going to be dark because from the top down underneath here is shaded, but I'm also going to add the white highlights from the eraser just to show that it's also kind of connected to the lighted area of this picture. You need to be very precise just to show that there's some reflection of light in there. Maybe there's like a tuft of fur here that sticks out farther than the others, has a little bit more light exposure. I'm just gonna do that. Kind of like if bears had Adam's apples. There we go. And then if I wanted to, I could go and make those stand out like individual pieces of fur and just go in afterwards. And maybe drag that out a little bit. The same pencil, the 8B. There we go. There we are, see? Alright, so that gives it a little bit more depth in that area. Go in and darken this part up again. Alright. The nose, because it's more of a leathery texture than a furry texture, I'm going to go ahead and color in this entire outline in this black 8B. I'm just going to really make this really dark. Nostril area, the top of the nose, nostril, the darkest part, and then this center part just below or above where the lip would be, I'm going to color that in relatively dark too, but not as dark as I did the nostrils, just to give it some contrast. And then around the edge of the nose, where there's not sunlight hitting it, this top part, I'm going to very lightly color it in, even lighter than before, so that there is a difference in the exposed part of the nose. I'm going to go in with my ink pen, because it's not a pencil, but it's for the darkest parts of the shaded area. So I'm going to do that in Pointillism, because the leathery part of the nose of the bear is going to be very textured, and it's going to be very different how you've textured the fur or the clothing in the image. So I'm just going to go around the edges and add the black dots just to show that it's like a porous texture that has a lot of like pointillism or stipple on it. And I'm going to avoid the very tip of the nose with that. There we go. I can just figure that out. And then, because I've done this in the pen, I don't have to worry about it coming off when I use the very fine tip eraser to bring out the light spot. I'm just gonna lift off some of the pencil in that singular spot, and then maybe just a little bit right here to add a sheen to the tip of the nose. Darken in that other spot. There we go. That's your bear nose. Same thing, I think I'm going to use the ink pen for the darkest part of the eye, like the outline of the eye, because I want it to be thin. I don't want it to get blended in to the rest of the drawing. I want it to stand out, the shape of the eye, and then the iris in full black. And then that little light sheen, I can outline it. I'll maybe do this. Just make the eyebrow a little bit more prominent for the eye. I can go in with a, let's see, maybe the 4B. Just do a little bit of shading on the eye. There we go. And I'll bring that up so you can see. So that's what we've got so far. I'm gonna touch this screen. Come on, focus. There we go, that's perfect, look at that. So you can see all of the little tiny lines I did for the fur, the dark part of the fur, and the piece that I've lifted off for the highlights with the eraser. You can see all the little dots in the nose, just to kind of give it that leathery feel, and then the part where I've lifted off the highlights. And that eye is looking great. So I'm gonna continue just a little bit longer with the fur detail using maybe my mechanical pencil. I'll do this eye first. So again, my name is Ursa Keeper, and I volunteer and work at the Artbeat Art Gallery in Porter's Place. This is a previous piece that I've done, kind of akin to what was in the video today. I just included 3 different panels of 3 different types of shading techniques on the same image. So this is the pointillism and the circular crosshatches, stuff like that, with ink, with pencil, and with marker. So the 3 of them together make one complete image. Yay! You can follow me on all of my social media if you wish. It's Burden Keeper. You can look me up. I'm very easy to find. And I'm very responsive. So if you have any kind of questions about the tutorial today or anything else that I do commissions as well. So if you want to get in touch, I'm always available and looking forward to making new friends.